Hello, class 9th. I think you all must have enjoyed and utilized your winter break. Okay. Wishing you all a very promising and fulfilling new year, children. Okay. New is the year. New are the hopes and aspiration. New is the resolution and new are the spirits. Clear? So, I hope, I believe that this new year brings you a very, very success, okay, and happiness. Okay, so with this good thought in mind, let us start today's class. Okay, today we will do the poem that is television. Okay, the television, as you are very fond of watching television, but here the poet has represented, or the poet says that he considers the television as an idiot box. What he says, he considers the television as an idiot box because according to him it affects the mental growth and imagination of the children. Okay, he says, or he has portrayed some ill effects of television, and he stresses, he emphasizes, okay, to rather watching television one should read books, because books give us knowledge and many other things. Okay, so let us read the poem, let us go through the poem, and let us come to know the advantages of reading books and the disadvantages of watching television. Clear?
The poem in brief. The poet tells all parents that they must never allow their children to even go near the television set. It might make life easier for the parents who have to manage their children all day, but television severely damages a child's intelligence. The poet then talks about the joys of reading for children. He requests the parents to throw away the television set and install a bookcase in its place. He knows that children will protest angrily at this, but he is confident that they will soon turn to books, they will experience the joys of reading, and later on they will thank their parents for doing what is actually good for them. Now let us read the poem and understand the meaning. The most important thing we've learned, so far as children are concerned, is never, never, never let them near your television set. Or better still, just don't install the idiotic thing at all. So the poem begins with a strong, emphatic message to parents. The poet says that as far as children are concerned, they have learned that children should not be allowed to even go near the television set. And it would be best if parents did not install a television set at home, because it is an idiot box that makes children idiots. In almost every house we've watched them gaping at the screen. They loll and slop and lounge about and stare until their eyes pop out. Last week in someone's place we saw a dozen eyeballs on the floor. The poet says that in almost every house that they have been to, they have watched children staring at the screen with wide eyes. These children are so lazy that they lie lazily in one place, and when they move lazily. They stare at the television set continuously till their eyes pop out of their sockets. The poet jokingly and as a hyperbole says that last week in someone's place they saw a dozen eyeballs that must have popped out of children's eyes lying on the floor. They sit and stare and sit until they are hypnotized by it, until they are absolutely drunk with all that shocking, ghastly junk. The poet says that children sit and stare at the television set all day like unintelligent beings. They get totally hypnotized and drunk with all the shocking, frightening rubbish that they see. Hypnotized means They believe whatever they see on TV to be real and think that TV is an accurate representation of the real world. Drunk means they get addicted to it and lose control of their mental faculties. Oh, yes, we know it keeps them still. They don't climb out the windowsill. They never fight or kick or punch. They leave you free to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink. The poet says that they know, they understand why you allow your children to watch television. It is because they are so engrossed by it that they stay quiet. They don't run around or play mischief. They don't fight and hurt each other. This allows the parents to finish their household chores. The parents are then able to concentrate on cooking lunch and washing the dishes that have piled up in the sink. But did you ever stop to think, to wonder just exactly what this does to your beloved tot? The poet then asks parents that have you ever paused to think? Have you ever reflected upon what hours and hours of television viewing does to your beloved toddler? It rots the sense in the head. It kills imagination dead. It clogs and clutters up the mind. It makes a child so dumb and blind he can no longer understand a fantasy, a fairyland. So television makes a child dumb. His or her intelligence rots away. The child becomes unimaginative. The junk on television blocks and crowds up or messes up the child's mind. As a result, the child becomes so dumb and blind to active thinking and exercising the imagination that he loses the ability to understand the beauty and sensibility in a fantasy or a fairyland. His brain becomes as soft as cheese. His powers of thinking rust and freeze. He cannot think, he only sees. A child who watches television all day loses his mental faculties. The poet uses a simile by comparing the brain to cheese to explain how soft, that means pliant and useless, the brain becomes. His powers of thinking get spoiled and stagnate. There is no development, there is only degradation. The child is no longer able to use his brain actively and think. He only sees passively. All right, you'll cry. All right, you'll say. But if we take the set away, what shall we do to entertain our darling children? Please explain. So, after hearing what the television is doing to their children, the parents will grudgingly agree. They will say, all right, we agree with what you are saying. But if we take away the television set, then how will our darling children entertain themselves? How will they stay occupied? How will they use their time? Please explain to us. We'll answer this by asking you, what used the darling ones to do? How used they keep themselves contented before this monster was invented? Have you forgotten? Don't you know? We'll say it very loud and slow. The poet says that they will answer this question by asking another question to the parents in return. That, what did your darling children do before? How did they stay happy and contented before this monster, which is the television, was invented? They will ask the parents if they really don't know it, if they have really forgotten it. Then they will tell the parents the answer loudly and slowly so that they understand it very well this time. They used to read. They'd read and read and read and read and then proceed to read some more. Great Scott, gadzooks! One half their lives was reading books. So earlier, children used to read books. They loved reading. It was their hobby. They never got tired of it. They read and read and read and read continuously. Great Scott, gadzooks! These are exclamations of surprise at the wonderful capacity of reading and loving books that children used to have. The nursery shelves held books galore. Books cluttered up the nursery floor, and in the bedroom by the bed, More books were waiting to be read. So the shelves in the nursery room had plenty of books stacked in them. There were so many books that the children loved reading, and many of them were even lying about on the floor. Not only the nursery, but even in the bedroom next to the bed, there were books lying about. So the children had an active relationship with books, which is why the poet personifies them by saying that more books were waiting to be read. The poet uses exclamation marks to marvel at the sheer love of books that children used to have. Such wondrous, fine, fantastic tales of dragons, gypsies, queens, and whales, and treasure isles and distant shores, where smugglers rode with muffled oars, and pirates wearing purple pants, and sailing ships and elephants. So the poet says that children used to read well crafted, fantastic stories that created wonder. These stories were about dragons, gypsies, queens, whales, islands that had hidden treasure, shores in faraway lands that smugglers sneaked off to by rowing quietly. Children read about pirates, sailing ships, and elephants. And cannibals crouching round the pot, stirring away at something hot. It smells so good. What can it be? Good gracious, it's Penelope. Children read stories about cannibals gathered around a cooking pot, focusing eagerly on stirring the dish which they were cooking. The poet then adopts a humorous note by saying that since the dish smells so good, they were probably cooking Penelope, since they were cannibals. Penelope refers to the beautiful and much sought after wife of the Greek hero Odysseus. So, all these stories took children to a world that they had never imagined before, where they could experience extraordinary adventures and also enrich their imagination. The younger ones had Beatrix Potter with Mr. Todd the Dirty Rotter, and Squirrel Nutkin, Pigling Bland, and Mrs. Tiggy Winkle, and the younger children could read stories written by Beatrix Potter, who was another British writer. They read about Mr. Todd, who was a bad guy. They read about Squirrel Nutkin and Pigling Bland and Mrs. Tiggy Winkle. Even the names of the characters inspire one to think, for example, that Squirrel Nutkin loved nuts so much that he spent all his day gathering them. Pigling Bland was probably a boring, dull young pig. Mrs. Tiggy Winkle was probably a podgy, affectionate old lady. The poet ends the last line here with a dash and an and to show that the world of books is never ending. Just how the camel got his hump and how the monkey lost his rump. And Mr. Toad and bless my soul, there's Mr. Rat and Mr. Mole. Oh, books, what books they used to know, those children living long ago. So children used to read these unusual, funny tales that tickle your imagination and also make you laugh, such as how the camel got his hump and how the monkey lost his rump or backside. They read about other animal characters like Mr. Toad, Mr. Rat, and Mr. Mole. So there was no shortage of lovable and lively characters for these children, and they got all of these through books. Which is why the poet says, oh, books, what books they used to know, those children living long ago. So here the poet becomes wistful, remembering the good old times, and also reminds the parents subtly that when they were children, they too read these books. So was it really all that long ago? That is an indirect, implied question and a hyperbole. So please, oh please, we beg, we pray, go throw your TV set away, and in its place you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall. So the poet emphatically requests and exhorts parents to get rid of their television completely and in its place to install a lovely bookshelf on the wall. Then fill the shelves with lots of books, ignoring all the dirty looks, the screams, the yells, the bites and kicks, and children hitting you with sticks. So the next step will be to fill up the bookshelves with plenty of books. Children will obviously protest forcefully at this, but the poet advises the parents to ignore all the dirty looks, the screams, the yells, the bites and kicks, and even children hitting you with sticks. So the poet again skillfully uses a hyperbole here to convince parents to do what is good for their children, even if they meet with strong opposition. Fear not, because we promise you that in about a week or two of having nothing else to do, they'll now begin to feel the need of having something to read. So fear not. With these lines, the poet switches over from his loud, convincing argument to a reassuring tone for the parents. He tells them, don't be afraid of your children's tantrums, because these will last for a short time. If the parents do not give in to their children's demands, then in about a week, since they have nothing else to do, they will now start feeling the need to read books. And once they start, oh boy, you'll watch the slowly growing joy that fills their hearts. They'll grow so keen, they'll wonder what they'd ever seen in that ridiculous machine, that nauseating, foul, unclean, repulsive television screen. So once the children start reading, you will be amazed and overjoyed when you see them slowly and steadily enjoying books. They will love reading books so much that now they will wonder why they had been addicted to the television. They will understand how ridiculous, disgusting, foul, filthy, and repulsive the television actually is. The poet uses very strong words here to underscore how harmful television is for children. And later, each and every kid will love you more for what you did. And sometime later, each and every kid, every single one of them, will love their parents even more because they will realize that their parents did the best for them. They will understand that their parents helped them to make the correct choice.